Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Resilience Talk with Brad Neufeld. My guest today, you're gonna love this lady. She's a first-time author, Paulette Ren. This is her book here called Stolen Moments: Coping with Loss from Multiple Sclerosis. Paulette is like I said, a first-time author. She's a widow. Retired from Delta Airlines and loves to cook, golf, read, and travel. So we have a lot to talk about today. She lives in Draper, Utah, where she is close to her 3 children and her 9 grandchildren. And she spends a lot of time with her family. She has been enjoying writing, and she's even in the process of writing another book. And we'll maybe touch on that a little bit later. But Paulette, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me, Brad. I'm very excited, and it's just nice to meet you and
thank you.
Your audience.
Yep. Hi, audience. See, here we go. But the book here, Stolen Moments. Let's talk a little bit about. Okay, so you were born, you say, in Idaho, in Pocatello, Idaho.
Mm-hmm. I was born and raised in Pocatello, Idaho, and I pretty much stayed there and graduated from Pocatello High, and I went to the Idaho State University for a year, and then once I got married, I moved to California, and eventually we moved back to Utah and spent most of our years here in Utah. Mm-hmm. You know, had a short stint back in Idaho again, but that's where I mainly started with everything. And just a few years ago, you know, I'd always wanted to write a book. Mm-hmm. And I never really was what you would call experienced because I didn't have a newsletter or any of that stuff, but I journaled some. Mm-hmm. And so I just got this in my head that I wanted to write a book. And so I started taking some community classes. And I got started, and it was really fun. And then one day I met Richard Paul Evans at a book signing. And he'd always been one of my favorite authors. And we got talking, and I started following him. And he started the group Author Ready. And so I joined that and started doing more on my book. Went to a few of his retreats, and that with everybody. They're so wonderful to help me, and finally finished my book. So I was really proud I was able to do that.
Well, and what I love about your book is the way that you laid it out. It is your story, but it's done with a fictitious couple.
Correct.
So this was interesting because, again, when I first met you and you told me this is a book about my story, and then I read the characters in there, Natalie, mm-hmm. And it was like Natalie and her husband. I was like going, wait a minute, I thought this was your story, but it is. But I don't think I really like the format that you put it in. It's really powerful, telling the story.
Well, when I first started writing, and I think part of it was being a little shy and a new author, I just thought, I don't know if I want to talk about myself. You know, it's kind of embarrassing. You don't know where you're going to go. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, I'm going to change the names, and I think that'll make it a little easier for me. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I started changing the names, and most of them in there are all fictitious names, but the characters are all real. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to work out well. You know, when I got completely done, I questioned whether I should have just gone ahead and used the real names, but it's okay. It worked out good, and I enjoyed doing it that way. It was a little easier for me.
Mm-hmm. So it's the story is definitely your life, and so you met your husband. You were married. Everything was going well, and then something happened around the time of 30. That's when you found out that he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Exactly. Yeah, we had a really good life together. I was very active. Yeah. He liked to ski and golf, and we had a boat and water skied and all the active things. And I learned how to do those things so I wouldn't be alone on weekends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought, well, I better learn how to do this stuff because it was all quite new to me.
Yes.
But it was all very active. We had fun. We were traveling. We really had a good life. Mm-hmm. And then about 30, he started having symptoms of just like numbness in his arms and that. And at first we didn't think so much about it. We thought maybe it was just a pinched nerve or something. And he was a draftsman, so he used his hands every day and had to draw.
That would make sense.
And when we finally found out, it was several months later when we actually had the test taken. They did a spinal tap to finally do it. Back then, they didn't have a lot of tests or medications for MS. But he was diagnosed, and we were like in shock.
Yeah.
You know, like, what?
Yeah.
What's multiple sclerosis? You know? And we started reading everything we could find. We got newsletters and everything you could find. You know, it wasn't quite like today where we have as much access to the computer. And we tried all kinds of different things. When he first came down with it, he was, you know, he kept getting worse. And then he got better, and he went into remission for almost 22 years.
Wow.
But he never lost certain things. You know, there was numbness in your legs and arms and tiredness.
Yeah.
And when you say tired with MS, it's not like I need a nap. It's like you're exhausted.
Physically exhausted.
Yeah. And so it affects a lot of things in your body, you know, because what it is the spinal, the myelin sheath on your spine starts to deteriorate. And like I said, back then they didn't have a lot of meds, so it was really tough. But we did all kinds of things. We tried, you know, massages, we tried natural foods, we even juiced, we did all that kind of stuff to help. And in time, he did get better. And one thing I can say is he had a really good attitude.
Yeah.
You know, he said he didn't want to be like this. He wanted to be active and do what he could do. And so we tried all kinds of things, and then he slowly got better. And that helped a lot because he could still do a lot of the same things we used to do, just in a little bit more mild form. Like he could still ski after a while. And golf. Golf was his passion. If he couldn't have golfed, I don't know if he'd have made it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so we were able to do that, and, you know, we raised our children to love nature and enjoy all those things too.
Good. Well, I was going to ask that. How was it with your children when they found out? Were they, obviously I know they were devastated, but what did you do as a family to pull together to work through this?
Fortunately, my children were a little older. Okay. My boys were in college, and my daughter was still going to college, but she had gotten married at that point. And when we found out, you know, first of all, we were extremely shocked. And then when I told the kids, you know, they were shocked. But what we did, and this was a really important thing, we tried really hard to be positive. We tried to be loving and kind to each other. And my kids were a blessing. They helped me so much, especially toward the end when he got worse. My kids would come over and sit with him while I went to work. I was working for Delta at that time. And they'd spend the night with him, and they'd feed him and talk to him, and it just really helped us to bond. And they talked about everything under the sun, you know, including illness and how you feel about it. And that helped a lot. It really helped a lot, because one of the things we decided was, you know, this is our circumstances right now. This is what is happening to us. And we need to be positive and strong and take care of ourselves and do the best we can. And there's days when you have your ups, and they're good. Then you have your downs. But, you know, you learn to adjust and do what you can. And that was a really important thing, is you have to accept your circumstances.
Yeah. Well, did you like sit down with your kids and like make some plans on how to help your husband? Or the reason I'm asking this is, Paulette, is because my audience here, they come to us for the purpose of how do you overcome the challenges of life. And this is definitely one that we see quite, I hate to say frequently, but
I know.
it's like
there's a
time.
lot of people out there with stories, for sure.
Yeah, so what advice or what help can you give the audience? And so you're in that position. What did you do?
Well, I think you do need to talk about it. And for some people that's really difficult, but you need to talk about it because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You know, there's no cure for MS. They've come a long way with research, And they've got meds out there that are absolutely phenomenal now that makes such a difference, stopping the progression and helping with a lot of different things. But I think the most important thing that we realized is you have to be positive and do the best you can. And so with the kids, we kind of set, since I had 3 kids, a daughter and 2 boys, each one of them would take a night. So that was 3 days a week that they were with their dad while I was working. And then during the day, we set kind of a pattern, and we do things that would make him comfortable. When he got really bad and couldn't do anything and was mostly bedridden, at that point, I would read to him. And he started losing his eyesight, so he couldn't really watch TV anymore. So we'd read, and we'd go for walks around the neighborhood. And, we just tried to make life as simple as possible. And, of course, there was always, crazy things happening, but back and forth to doctors and all of that. But we learned that this is part of life. If this is what's going to happen, you can either choose to be sad or happy. And it's not easy. I'm not saying that you can just go out there and think, I'm fine. But it's much easier if you can be positive about it and try to be hopeful and hope that somewhere along the line things work out so that you can still have a normal life somewhat.
Yeah, because I know when you, again, things that I took from the book, when you went and visited him in the hospital, you really go into detail here about his feelings too. I'm sure, because I'm a father and I want to provide for my kids, and with the situation I told you about me with my brain surgery and everything, I felt like I couldn't provide for them for a while, but everything ended up working out. But so I can really understand a little bit about what he was going through there. I want to get out of this bed and I want to do something.
Exactly.
And so I'm sure he was quite frustrated.
He was extremely frustrated at first. And the thing is he still had his mind. Everything was clear.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. He was sharp as
He knew what was happening. He knew what was going on. And I think, in his heart, he was very much like what you said. He wanted to take care of his family still. He wanted to make sure we were okay. And so, between us all, and thank God for my kids and friends and family too, they helped to work through things. And one thing I did have to learn is how to ask people for help.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing.
It is, because I'd always been pretty independent, and I didn't want to have to do that. But you reach a point in your life where I can't do all of this alone, and everybody was just so wonderful and helpful. And I think that's what made our life a little more easy at that point.
Yeah. And so then I know at one point, were you working all along through this? Because I know there was one part in the book where you were like, okay, what do I need? I need to get a career here because I've got to keep going even after my husband passes. So what am I going to do? And you ended up working for Delta Airlines.
Delta, yeah. I had different jobs throughout, just mostly part-time, nothing real. And then I reached a point where, I knew the day would come when things could change and be harder. So I had kind of prepared myself over the years. I kept up my typing. I did all different things, and I kind of checked around to see what would be best for us. And at that time, the airlines was very appealing because I thought they pay well, they have good medical benefits, and they have travel benefits.
Yes.
And even though we had times when it was a little hard to go places, we were able to travel quite a bit and see a lot. And those were really helpful, and that was fun. I've got a real travel bug in my children now. They travel all over the place. They love to travel too. And so that helped me, and Delta worked out perfect for me because I worked a lot of midnight shifts. And so the kids would be with him, and then I would go to work, and then I'd have the day with him.
Yeah.
And so that worked out very good for us.
Okay. Oh, wow. And so so you made it, but he ended up living for quite a bit longer than you had thought.
Yeah.
Because as you said, he ended up going into remission.
Yeah.
for a little while.
He went into remission for almost 22 years.
Yeah, were you jumping up and down thinking, all right?
Yeah, well, you almost forget
Yeah.
that they are sick when when things go kind of normal and you're able to do things, you kind of forget that, what can happen. And it was about the last 3 years of his life, he started slowing down and he really started having issues like walking. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody, they kind of walk like they're drunk a little bit.
Yeah.
Although they're not, they lose that.
Is that how I am? I don't know, because I do that from time to time. Never mind.
But, and then, he slowly started, getting weaker. And one day, which I tell about this in the book, he was downstairs sleeping because he used to come home from work and he'd take a nap usually, and that would help him get through the rest of the night. And one day he was downstairs because it was quieter down there usually, and he fell and broke his hip.
Oh, man.
And after he had surgery on his hip, it wasn't long, he became paralyzed from the neck down. He could move his head, he could think, everything was okay, but he couldn't move. And so that's when we ended up eventually having to get him in a hospital bed. And he didn't want any of that. He wanted to just be normal. And it took him a little while to accept the fact that, honey, we've got to take care of you now.
Yeah.
And once he accepted that, it was much better, and it was very good. And we put him on hospice the year he passed away. And they said, well, he'll probably live maybe 6 months. And it wasn't the hospice where they give you things right away, but they were there, helped me. They're a wonderful organization. And they helped me. They'd come over and help clean his bed, and that way I'd give him a shower. And we ended up moving to a place where we had it all wheelchair accessible, which made it much easier for me. And he lived about 8 months after he was diagnosed, and which to me, I'm still amazed because he had so many things going on, with infections and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a cute story in there that I love this story.
Okay.
We used to read.
Yeah, please share.
We used to read, and one of the books we were reading was Tuesdays with Maury.
Okay.
And he really liked that, and it, he was this guy had cancer, but it was a very interesting book by Mitch Albom. And we read the whole thing, and he really liked that one. And I said, well, there's a movie coming out. And so the day he passed away, the movie was coming out. And I had gotten him fed and dressed and everything, and he said, I don't feel too good today. I said, well, just rest. We won't do anything today. And he went into a coma at that point. So I invited the kids over, and then eventually the whole family, which was a blessing because they were able to tell him goodbye.
Yes.
But the night he passed away, I had everybody leave because I thought, well, I'll call you if anything happens. And I went in the room where he was at and turned TV on. I says, okay, we're ready to watch Tuesdays with Maury.
Yes.
And, of course, he didn't respond. And we were watching the movie, and he passed away 30 minutes into the film.
Oh, man.
And I just thought that was really erotic, you know. But little things that happen like that,
Yeah.
So, but it was interesting.
Oh, my gosh, Paulette, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So then, after all of this, so you said you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you wanted to always write a book. At what point were you inspired to tell your story?
Well, yeah, in the past when I wanted to write a book, I had no idea
what
I was going to write.
What kind of stories?
But then, as in my book, there's lots of little things that happen to us. And I thought, well, maybe those would be interesting to other people, not just the MS, but just some of the other things that took place. Yeah. And it really wasn't until I started taking the classes and doing the community classes, and then working with Author Ready and took all the lessons. Yeah. And then when I went to the retreat, that really pushed me to do it. Okay. And so that's when I did. And it, the book probably, when you think about from the beginning to end, probably took me 2 years. I think, because it did take me a little while to get through it. But that's really kind of where it started. And I kind of surprised myself because I kept thinking, can I really do this? Is this going to be interesting? Or is it boring? Is anybody going to want to listen?
Yeah, well, would you mind expanding on that a little bit about the writer's process? Because I run into so many people that say, I want to write a book, I want to tell my story, but they don't even know where to start.
Exactly.
And see, and I'm in a weird position. I've created a lot of audio material, and I've actually got like 6 books started, but I haven't finished. Anyway, there's a lot to that there. But tell if you don't mind, share with the audience, when was it? Obviously, you didn't know what to write. Where did you start?
Yeah, I first started, I knew I wanted to talk about the illness, for one thing. But when I started taking classes, I was just kind of writing randomly at what, kind of going through the chronological part of our marriage together. And then I started really getting serious. And it's kind of funny because I thought writing the book was hard enough. It's a lot harder than people think. And a lot of it is people get stuck at a certain point. That's why they never finish their books. But you've got to get past certain things so that you can actually finish it. Yeah. And so the classes and the retreats definitely helped me with that. But I don't know, I found some things really difficult. When I started editing, excuse me. Okay, I'd write this chapter which I thought, oh, this is really good. I'm so excited about this, and I'd send it over to the editor. He said, well, Paulette, that's really good, but what does it have to do with your story?
Oh my gosh! I would have thrown my hands up in the air and just went, because
I cried my way through some of that because I thought, well, it's really hard to concentrate on one thing all the way through. Yes. Unless you're just doing short stories or something. Yeah. And so that really opened my eyes, and I thought, okay, focus. Yes. And let's see if we can't stick to the story as best as possible. Yes. And so that's what I did, and it took me a long time. It's a hard thing to do. I really admire people that write books, because when I was just a regular reader, I never thought anything about that. I just thought about the stories and, I like that book or I don't like it. But when I started writing my own, it was like, are they going to like this? Or does that sound dumb? Or,
all the feelings and emotions that you go through. Yeah.
So that part's, I almost think the editing's worse than anything.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, but it all came to fruition. It all came to be. And so where can people get a copy of your book?
It is on Amazon. You can get it through Barnes & Noble online and Walmart. And actually, you can order it through almost any bookstore. I do have some stores that are carrying it where I've done book signings and stuff. But the easiest is probably just online through Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Okay. And so, by the way, audience, if you're listening to this, it's in the show notes down there, the link where you can go to buy Paulette's book. So just click on either Amazon or Barnes & Noble. I'll have them both in there. And so be sure to look this up. This is a great story. Again, I love how you laid it out with the fictitious characters and everything.
Thank you.
It just really, because it was nice that I knew, for me anyway, during the reading experience, that I knew that it was your story. But then it was like, I don't know, there was just a magic to it. Yeah. I don't know how else to say it.
Good. And I would like to just say one other
please.
thing for you. I have learned through all this that you've got to learn to believe in yourself. Everybody has a story, and not everybody's going to be a writer, but there's talent everywhere. Yeah. And so many people do these real profound, wonderful, creative things, and we all think, oh, wouldn't that be nice to do that? But I've learned you've got to believe in yourself, and it may just be the small things that matter in our life. It may be being a good mother, a good grandma, good brother or sister,
Do
good
what you
grandma,
love.
grandpa.
Be yourself.
Be kind
kind
and
of
be yourself, because not everybody's going to be that Mr. Talent out there showing the world, which I totally admire anybody that's talented.
Yeah, not everybody's
like
going to
that.
be Richard Paul Evans,
Exactly.
who's written 46 now,
Yeah,
New York
yeah,
Times bestsellers.
exactly.
Holy cow.
But it's very important, and it's never too late.
Right.
I almost hate to admit this, but I'm 78.
No way. No
And
way.
I am shocked. I mean, I almost wish I'd have done this 25 years ago,
Yeah.
but it didn't happen then. It happened when it was meant to happen.
Yes.
And so I think anybody that has a plan, whether it's to, pursue something you really want, don't be afraid, because it's never too late.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to be yourself and do what's good for you.
Follow your heart.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
Very good advice. Any final comments to our listeners today?
Well, I just want to tell all the people out there, all these beautiful souls that are out there, I know how hard it is when you have something. It's heartbreaking. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But learn to accept your consequences and do what you have to do to make your life better. Be positive, try to make the best of it. If you're limited on certain things, then just do what you can do, and I want you to know that God's always looking out for us, and He's always finding a way for us. And I just want to bless all of you, because you're always in my prayers.
Awesome. Well, as my little sign here behind me says, with God, all things are possible.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, very much so.
Paulette, thank you so much. Again, my guest today, Paulette Ren, is the author of the book Stolen Moments. This is what it looks like here. Again, you can buy it from one of the links here on the bottom here. But again, thank you, Paulette. Thank you so much for coming in, and you did great.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been
No problem.
great
I have a lot of
opportunity.
fun. Always love to meet new people and find new stories like this. I just love stories of people who have conquered.
Yeah.
Lived through it and conquered it. It's just so inspiring to me.
Thank you.
So, all right, thank you. All right, well, that's going to be it for our show today. One last thing, Paulette. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how could they? If they wanted
Yeah,
to...
they can get a hold of me through my website, and I'm always open to like book clubs, talking about the book, or to go to different things. But if you just go to paulette.ren@gmail.com, that's the quickest one.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Paulette.ren at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. All right, well, that's it. Another wonderful interview here. Again, check us out at resiliencetalknetwork.com and get on our YouTube page, because this is where we post all of our interviews at. And you just go to @Resilience Talk Network just @Resilience Talk Network, and you'll find us. You'll see all of our latest and greatest interviews. And while you're on there, be sure and click on the subscribe button and tap on that bell, because that way you'll be notified next time we have an event or a new podcast come up. And so if you want to be on our show, I would love to hear your stories, like to hear anything that people, like I said, people overcome challenges. You can get a hold of me at info@resiliencetalk.net. That's info@resiliencetalk.net. But until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.